Welcome to Reading Africa. Today we're going to read about the Bantu Peoples. The Bantu Peoples, or Bantu Peoples, are speakers of the Bantu languages, comprising several hundred indigenous ethnic groups in sub-Saharan Africa, spread over a vast area from Central Africa across the African Great Lakes to Southern Africa. The total number of languages ranges in the hundreds, depending on the definition of language or dialect, estimated at between 440 and 680 distinct languages. The total number of speakers is the hundreds of millions, ranging at roughly 350 million in the mid-2010. About 60 million speakers divided into some 200 ethnic or tribal groups are found in the Democratic Republic of Congo alone. The larger of the individual Bantu groups have populations of several millions, e.g. the Hutu of Rwanda and Burundi, the Shona of Zimbabwe, which are 12 million and 25 million respectively, the Zulu of South Africa, which are 12 million, the Luba of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which are 7 million, the Sukuma of Tanzania, which are 9 million, and the Kikuyu of Kenya, which are 8 million, or the Xhosa people of Southern Africa, which are 8.1 million as of 2011. The word Bantu for the language families and its speakers is an artificial term based on the Reconstruction Proto-Bantu term for people or human beings. The name was coined to represent the word for people in loosely reconstructed Proto-Bantu from the plural noun class va or ba, categorizing people and the root ndu, some and any, ubuntu, abantu, umuntu, izinto. There are also no native terms for the peoples who speak Bantu languages because they are not an ethnic group. People speaking Bantu languages self-identified themselves as people or the true people, that is, idiomatically the reflexes of Bantu or Bantu in the numerous languages, often having connotations of personal character traits as encompassed under the value system of Ubuntu, which means that you are a person, you are a human being, also known as Hulu in Shona or Woto in Sesotho. Rather than just referring to all human beings, it also means the person. The root in Proto-Bantu is reconstructed as Ndu or Tu. Versions of the word Bantu occur in all Bantu languages, for example, as Bantu in Kikongo and Kituba, Watu in Swahili, Antu in Chichewa, Bantu in Lingala, Vato in Kuluba, Bato in Duala, Avanto in Gusi, Andu in Kawa, and Kikuyi, Avantu in Kirundu, Zulu, Xhosa, Runyakitara, and Luganda, Wandru in Shingazinja, Avantru in Pondo and Ndebele, Baftu in Puti, Banftu in Swati, Baka, Banu in Kusukuma, Banu in Lala, Vanu in Shona and Tonga, Vato in Setoto, Tswana and Northern Soto, Antu in Meru, Andu in Embu, Vandu in Luha dialects, Vatu in Venda, and Bandu in Yakusha. Bantu languages are theorized to derive from the Proto-Bantu reconstruction language, estimated to have been spoken about 4,000 to 3,000 years ago in West Central Africa. They were supposedly spread across Central, Eastern and Southern Africa in the so-called Bantu expansion. This concept has often been framed as a mass migration, taking roughly 2 millennia and dozens of human generations during the first millennia and the first millennia CE. Some argue that it was actually a cultural spread rather than a movement of peoples or populations. But this is also refuted by other theorists. However, the language traits are still very much common among the Bantu peoples. The expansion happened into an eastward and a southward wave of dispersal, with one wave moving across the Congo basin towards East Africa and another moving south along the African coast and the Congo River system towards Angola. Genetic analysis shows a significant clustered variation of genetic traits, but almost similar among Bantu language speakers by region, suggesting an admixture but a commonality from the prior local populations. According to the early split scenario as described in the 1990s, the southward dispersal had reached the Central African rainforest by about 1500 BCE and the southern savannas by 500 BCE, while the eastward dispersal reached the Great Lakes by 1000 BCE, expanding further from there as the rich environment supported dense populations. Recent archaeological and linguistic evidence about population movement suggests that pioneering groups would have had reached parts of modern KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa sometime prior to the 3rd century AD along the coast and modern Northern Cape by AD 500. Under the Bantu expansion migration hypothesis, various Bantu-speaking peoples would have assimilated or displaced many earlier inhabitants, with only a few modern peoples such as the Pygmy groups in Central Africa, the Hadza people in northern Tanzania, and various Caucasian populations across southern Africa retaining autonomous existence in the era of European contact. Bantu-speaking migrants would have also interacted with some Afro-Asiatic outlier groups in the southeast, which are mainly known as the Cushiatak. As pastoralist groups suggest that the acquisition of cattle may have been from Cushitic-speaking neighbors. Evidence also shows the customs of milking cattle were also directly modeled from the Cushitic cultures in the area. Cattle terminology in Southern African Bantu languages differs from that found among more northerly Bantu-speaking peoples. One recent suggestion is that the Cushitic speakers had moved south earlier and interacted with the most northerly of Caucasian speakers who acquired cattle from them, and that the earliest arriving Bantu speakers in turn got their initial cattle from the Cushitic influenced Kwe speaking people. Therefore, the larger Bantu-speaking immigration or migration would have displaced or assimilated the southernmost extension of the range of the Cushitic speakers. Between the 9th and 15th centuries, Bantu-speaking states began to emerge in the Great Lakes region and in the savanna south of the Central African rainforest. Not far from the Mutirekwe River, the Mutapa kings built the Great Zimbabwe Complex, a civilization ancestral to the Kalanga people. Comparable sites in the southern Africa include Wumbusi in Zimbabwe and Manyikene in Mozambique. From the 12th century, the processes of state formation amongst Bantu peoples increased in frequency. This was probably due to the denser populations, which led to more specialized divisions of labor, including military power, while making emigration more difficult, and also led to technological developments in economic activity and to new techniques in the political, spiritual ritualization of royalty as the source of national strength and health. Some examples of such Bantu states include in Central Africa, the Kingdom of Congo, the Kuba Kingdom, the Lunda Empire, the Luba Empire, the Toro, the Munyoro, the Buganda, the Busonga, Rwanda, Burundi, Angola, and in Southern Africa, the Mutapa Empire, the Zulu Kingdom, the Ndebele Kingdom, the Mapupumbwe, the Kingdom of Butaya, Maravi, Danamumbe, Kami, Naletale, Kingdom of Zimbabwe, and the Rosary Empire. On the coastal section of East Africa, a mixed Bantu community developed through contact with Muslim, Arab, and Persian traders. Zanzibar became an important part of the Indian Ocean slave trade. The Swahili culture that emerged from these exchanges, with many Arab and Islamic influences, was seen as traditional Bantu culture, but was not particularly common in the Bantu culture as it was in the Afro-Arab members of the Bantu Swahili people. With its original speech community centered on the coastal parts of Zanzibar, Kenya, and Tanzania, a seaboard referred to as the Swahili coast, the Bantu Swahili language contains many Arabic loanwords, such as the result of the interaction. The Bantu migrations and centuries later, the Indian Ocean slave trade brought Bantu influences to Madagascar. The Malagasy people showing Bantu admixture and the Malagasy language Bantu loans. Towards the 18th and 19th centuries, the flow of the Zanj slaves from Southeast Africa increased with the rise of the Omani Sultan of the Zanzibar, based in Zanzibar, Tanzania. With the arrival of European colonialists, the Zanzibar Sultanate came into direct trade conflict and competition with the Portuguese and other Europeans along the Swazi Hill coast. But however, the Bantu Swahili language with the admixture of the Afro-Arab still exists till date. This is the end of the reading of the Bantu Peoples. Thank you for listening.